Hello, brothers and sisters. I wanted to talk to you about Satan and music. Now, Satan is said to really like music. And what is music? Well, it's the compression of waves and the decompression of waves in a pattern. So your ear is like this negative cone. It takes in the different wavelengths that are large and makes it smaller as it goes in. And then it goes through your cochineal, which is a spiral, and it gets even smaller in a reverse Fibonacci sequence of spiral, like a shell, basically. And then that large sound wave gets compressed into a smaller sound wave, and then your nerves register the vibration with the bones inside your ear, and then it translates that into sound in your brain. And if you have a cone, you kind of either have a horn or a cone and you blow into it, it takes compressed waves and it decompresses them into a lower wavelength. So it decompresses, and then if it goes backwards, it compresses. Now, if you have the compression and decompression of waves, that kind of looks like this. And you know what that kind of looks like? It reminds me of the underbelly of a snake.
Snakes has these belly scales that are overlapping, and they basically push into very small bumps in the ground. That small amount of force can provide enough force.
And that is what God cursed Satan with. He was cursed above all cattle, cursed to crawl on his belly.
Demonstrated a few experiments for us. Using highly concentrated gelatin and polarizing light, it's possible to see where the snake is pushing down and what parts of its body are lifted up.
So by concentrating its weight here, the snake can optimize where it's wanting to intersect with the ground.
Graduate student Jasmine Narodi learned to like being around snakes, but she said the smaller ones she worked with just don't take directions very well.
They can get out of anything. I mean, we found snakes in printers and in like air vents and under tables and under desks, and they've just popped up out of drawers when you've opened them. And if you have 10 snakes in a cage, you sometimes don't realize that there's 9, and then a day later you'll find it in the drawer.
Some experiments require putting the snakes to sleep for a few minutes.
Snakes actually don't breathe very much. That's why this actually takes a long time. They can hold their breath for a couple minutes at a time. They have incredibly slow metabolisms because they're cold-blooded. They're almost asleep, I think. I think I have a higher dose this time. If you take this self run, and it'll slide equally in all directions. And it's because the bottom is flat. These snakes, you see how they have these scales? They're basically like overlapping shingles on your house, so that if you rub the snake towards the tail, it feels very smooth, because that's the direction the snake actually moves in. But if you take it by its tail and pull it against the ground, the scales will catch.
So when you put these snakes on a plane, an inclined plane, the snake that's head first moves fastest. Tail first comes in second, and sideways is last because of the friction of their scales. For decades, researchers thought snakes moved through a forest by pushing off rocks, twigs, branches. But that did not explain their relative ease navigating smooth surfaces.
The snakes has these belly scales that are overlapping, and they basically push into very small bumps in the ground. That small amount of force can provide enough force for the snake to move.
If the scales are covered with a jacket, there's no traction and the animal goes nowhere fast. But look how it struggles compared to an unclothed snake.
Jesus said to clothe yourself in righteousness. So just like that clothed snake, it can't get anywhere. So if you clothe yourself in Jesus, he gets rid of the sin nature or puts a sock on it until we get raptured out. And speaking of waves, waves can be radiant energy like the infrared radiation that comes from our bodies. It can also be like sound waves. And when my friend played with the Ouija board, this thing took the sound energy out of the speaker and just sucked it out of the room and manifested itself on the ceiling, walking upside down the ceiling. A lot of people who have possessions or experience the evil demonic spirits, they feel this sensation of coldness. Well, it's taking the infrared radiation, the warmth energy, the lower wavelengths, in order to use it for itself. So it's literally like a leech or an earthworm, kind of like a slithering snake, on the ground, who takes the energy and uses it for themselves. So, sometimes I feel like Satan has us in this big old maze, like this entire reality is a trap by Satan. And he has us like mice and rats, and puts us in a maze trying to find the solution to the solution out. And once he finds the solution out, he incinerates the mice and just kind of gets rid of them. But Jesus came, and he wasn't of this world, and he showed us the way. And so Satan is trying to take those and to get the solution from them in order to get his way out. In the Bible, it talks a lot about seeds and roots. So I got thinking about, how God said everything produced something of its own kind, and it was good. And humans produce humans like themselves, after themselves, one another, and it was good. However, it's been corrupted. And just like avocado seeds, if you take a seed, it doesn't produce the same fruit. You plant that seed, and usually it doesn't taste good. It's too hard. Even the rodents don't eat that seed. Now, it takes every 1 in 10,000 seeds before another tree grows that produces the right kind of fruit that's tasteful. And so it kind of reminds me of the lineage of between, the beginning and then to Jesus. It's like 2,000 years or something like that. But avocados have a parent and a father, a mother and a father, so the two genes kind of combine and make a random result. So every 1 in 10,000 results in, just like humans, a male and a female, they get together and it produces something that's like the parent before, but it's not like them. And so it says in the Bible that if you choose Jesus, you'll be grafted onto the tree of life. And avocados, you cannot plant the same seeds coming from that tree that produces good fruit, and it will not produce the same fruit, and it usually is tasteless and bland and has no salt, if you will. So you take the tree and you graft that tree onto branches that from any other tree to produce that fruit from that stem. And so it talks about if you don't choose Jesus, you'll be burnt, but you can be grafted on to God's tree of life. And when you choose Jesus, you'll be grafted on. But just like that avocado seed that's planted that might be corrupt, just like the sin nature inside of that seed, we get to choose. Okay, so we're not destined to be just rotten fruit entire life because of our genetics. What connects us all is our minds. We can overcome our genetics with our minds. And we can overcome our spiritual sin nature when we accept Jesus. And what Jesus says is people perish due to lack of knowledge. Now, I have a question for you. Can a movie or a CGI animation have any effect on the reality outside of it? If nobody observes it, then nothing can happen because it doesn't affect anyone. But let's say you go and watch a movie. Do you think it might affect you? Would anyone wear a Hulk costume if they never went and saw the Avengers or saw the Hulk comics? No, they'd never even know about the Hulk. So I saw this animation called The Excuse, and I saw a tree growing out of a box of masks. Satan wants to grow his tree of control. He wants to create what he wants instead of what God wants. If people are affected by what they see, an observation collapses reality on itself to lock in a certain reality. What is Satan trying to do? He's trying to program us. He's trying to make us see certain things and make certain things happen and make us go towards a certain direction. What direction do you choose to go towards? People see their role models and idols, how they act, and they have all this money, so people copy them. They believe because they have all this money, copying what they do will bring them success, so they just copy them without even thinking. They try and do what they do, and they put on their nails, they do their hair, they act a certain way, how they're acting. But what if these role models and actors that they're watching are being paid by people who already have all the money. And they're trying to make these actors and models act completely absurd against what God wants. And then people copy that. So here's a video on avocado seeds and generational and genetics. All right, amen, God bless, and take care.
This is a Haas avocado. This is a Haas avocado seed. Did you know that if you plant this Haas avocado seed, it will not give you a tree that produces Haas avocados? Similarly, this Walden seed will not give you a tree that produces Walden avocados. This seed from a Hall avocado will not grow a tree that gives Hall fruit. And by now you see where this is heading. The seed from a Monroe avocado will not give you a tree that grows Monroe avocados. In fact, that's true for every variety of avocado and every one of these seeds, because avocados do not grow true to seed. Growing true, or true from seed, or true to seed, means that when you plant the seed from a piece of fruit that you ate, the resulting tree will produce fruit identical to the fruit that you ate. Or if not identical, very, very similar. Peaches, for example, grow true to seed. So if you eat a peach and take the pit and plant it in the ground, about 10 to 12 years later, you'll have a tree that produces peaches that taste just like the one you ate. Certain types of citrus also grow true to seed, such as key limes or grapefruit. If you eat a key lime and you plant some seeds from it, the resulting key lime trees or plants will give you key limes that taste exactly like the one that gave you the seeds in the first place. With avocados, on the other hand, if you save your seed and plant it in soil, you'll get an avocado tree. And that avocado tree eventually will produce fruit. But that fruit will not taste anything like the fruit from which the seed came. In fact, it's statistically unlikely that the fruit will even taste good at all. Now, a lot of you folks from up north will know what I'm talking about when I say crab apples, right? Do you have anybody that's got a crab apple tree in the neighborhood? Apples, like avocados, don't grow true to seed. Where I grew up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, there were a lot of people who had crab apple trees in the yard. They were absolutely disgusting. They looked gnarly. They were inedible. They would fall on the ground and rot. They'd make the sidewalk slippery. They'd make the road slippery. They were actually a traffic hazard. And when they started to rot on the road and the sidewalks, they stunk. They reeked. The apples were full of worms. They were just a mess. And I would always wonder, like, why did someone plant a crab apple tree? Why didn't they plant an apple tree that gives good tasting fruit? Well, now I know the answer. They didn't understand that apples don't grow true from seed. So they ate an apple, they spit out the seeds, they planted those seeds, they germinated a little seedling. They went out in the yard, planted their apple tree with the hopes they were going to have some nice juicy apples in a few years, and what resulted instead was a crab apple tree. With apples, they estimate that for every 80,000 trees grown from seed, you will get one tree that produces good tasting fruit. So those Macintosh apples you love, or those Granny Smiths, or those Golden Delicious, they were 1 in 80,000 anomalies. And for avocados, they say that rate is about 1 in 10,000. So 9,999 avocado trees produced yucky fruit until this lucky Hall was grown. Someone tasted it, said that tastes good. They let other people taste it. Those other people said that tastes good. So they went and they got a patent for it and they named it Hall. Then 9,999 more trees were grown and they produced yucky fruit. And then this lucky Monroe popped out of a tree. Someone tasted it, he liked it. Other people tasted it, they liked it. It was a consistent grower. The trees produced a high yield. So they took it, they patented it, and they named it Monroe. Then you got this guy here, the Haas. The Haas tree was actually planted from seed, and Rudolf Haas, the guy that planted it, tried to graft onto that seedling. The graft failed, and he just let the tree grow from seed anyhow. The resulting fruit was one of these, a Haas. He wanted to cut the tree down, but his daughter loved the taste of the avocado so much, she convinced him to keep the tree up. Other people tasted his fruit, they liked it, he patented it, he sold the patent for $5,000, and to this day, 4 billion of these are eaten per year. It is a $2 billion industry, the avocado industry. I bring this up because a lot of people are of the mistaken notion that if you plant the seed from a Hass avocado, you're going to get a Hass avocado tree. And that's not true. But it's not a foolish notion. It's simply a mistaken notion. But it's very logical to expect that if I eat a piece of fruit and it gives me this seed, if I put this seed in the ground, I will get more of that fruit. Unfortunately, that's not true for avocados. Let's use candy to explain why. Let's pretend that this avocado tree produces a fruit that tastes like Skittles. And this tree produces a fruit that tastes like caramel candy. And this guy here produces a fruit that tastes like wintergreen lifesavers. Which incidentally, you should try this. Go in a dark room, like a pitch black room in the middle of the night, and stand in front of a mirror and put one of these in your mouth and crunch down on it with your mouth open. You'll see green sparks. So here we have a fruit that tastes like Skittles. That might be appealing to some people. Here we have a fruit that tastes like caramel. That also might be appealing to some people. And here we have a fruit that tastes like wintergreen lifesavers, which also might be appealing to some people. So somewhere along the line, 10,000 trees were planted. A tree spit out avocados that tasted like Skittles. People loved them, and they named it the Skittle avocado. Same thing for caramel, same thing for wintergreen. Then eventually, this wintergreen avocado grew a piece of fruit. Someone picked a piece of fruit, they ate it, it tasted like delicious wintergreen lifesaver. They set aside the seed. They took that seed, they put it into soil, and 10 years later, they have a mature avocado tree. That avocado tree produced a piece of fruit that even the squirrels wouldn't eat. The squirrels took a couple of bites and rejected this piece of fruit. Why? Because the piece of fruit tasted disgusting. Because just like human beings, the seed that was planted had to be created from 2 sets of DNA. It had to be created with pollen from a male flower, which pollinated a female flower. Which means that the seed contains the attributes of a father tree and a mother tree. In this case, this tree contains the attributes of the tree that gives you caramel and the tree that gives you wintergreen. Caramel, delicious. Wintergreen, delicious. Wintergreen flavored caramel, not so much. You see, avocado trees are a lot like humans. You have some of the attributes of your father, some of the attributes of your mother, but you're not an identical clone of either. And furthermore, you're not an identical clone of your siblings. So not only will each of these seeds not grow me a tree identical to the mother tree, every single one of these trees is going to grow me a genetically unique organism that's never been grown before. You'll wind up with fruit that tastes a lot like wintergreen flavored caramel, or caramel flavored wintergreen, or wintergreen flavored caramel with Skittles. Now maybe you're a Clint Eastwood fan. Maybe you're feeling lucky. Remember what I told you. 1 in 10,000 times you'll have an avocado tree that produces avocados that taste like peanut butter. And maybe not too far away from it is a tree that gives you avocados that taste like chocolate. And one day a honeybee goes out and he gets pollen from the male flowers of your peanut butter tasting fruit. And he flies over to the female flowers of your chocolate tasting fruit. They fall in love. They combine their DNA to produce a seed. You plant that seed and you grow a tree. And that tree gives you a piece of fruit that combines the chocolate from the female flower and the peanut butter from the male flower. And if that happens, you have created for yourself a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup avocado. Congratulations, you hit the 1 in 10,000 lottery. And as those of you who follow this channel know, the way we get around this problem is grafting. I'm holding in my hand a Donny avocado. You see right here is the graft. So from the seed up, this was planted, a seed was planted, and it grew me this little trunk, which was then clipped and a clipping from a Donny avocado tree out in a grove was taken and inserted into here. At that point, the tree that was planted from seed stops growing upwards. It still grows roots under the ground, but the Donny from the donor tree continues to grow upward. And so now I have a seed that would give me one of these mutt blends if it grew to fruit. But inserted into that, I've got now a pure, in this case, Donny avocado. So if I wanted avocados that tasted like Skittles, I go out into the grove and I take a clipping from the tree that gives me avocados that taste like Skittles, and I stick it inside a tree grown from seed, and in about 3 to 4 years, I get avocados that taste like Skittles.